It's welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're going to take off today with, we see your comments just making the rounds about this. They were actually amending the Constitution when that matter popped up about, in fact, what was being argued was marriage to children, and then the controversy now moved on, and then they said, that part of the law did not actually talk about marrying underage girls out, and so the matter just keeps going back and forth, and it won't go away. So we'll touch on it this morning, and we're joined now by Michael Adeleye, who is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, you followed this debate and the arguments. You heard the perspective of the Senate while that amendment went through. You heard perhaps the comments of the Senate president as well, and above all, what Nigerians are saying about this matter. What do you think you make of all of these arguments going back and forth? Of course, from the perspective of the law as well, possibly.
Okay, as a parent and also as a concerned citizen as well, when the whole scenario, the whole event began to unravel, and I followed it from inception up to yesterday when the senator actually made his comments and trying to defend the undefendable about child marriage. I look at the Constitution because I wouldn't just be speaking without having my research information about the whole of this scenario. We have the version of the United Nations, who obviously govern all the nations who actually states under the UN. And also we have the UK version, and ultimately we have the Nigerian version as well about the child marriage. And when I listened to Senator Yarima yesterday, and I began to ask questions, are we living in society, if I may use the word, barbarian society, where some law seems to supersede or reign supreme over the law of the land?
Are you talking about what? The Sharia law or the customary law, or which one?
Whichever way you might want to...
the Child Rights Act?
Whichever way you might want to put it. Sharia law, Islamic law, Christian law, whatsoever. This is a country that has been governed by government, that have been elected by the people. And we have the legislative arm of the government that actually made a law that governs every one of us. Now, if a law now comes out of a religion that wants to reign supreme over the law of the land, then I think it's questionable. Because I have some information here, which I'm going to have to read out, if you're going to permit me.
Go ahead, please.
The United Nations Population Fund of 2012. This report was produced by UNFPA's Population and Development Branch and Sexual Reproductive Health Branch. It was written by Elizabeth Loiser, Monitoring and Evaluation Advisor, and was supported by the Office of the Executive Director with extensive comment from Dr. Babatunde Oshotimehin, who actually is the UNFPA Executive Director.
You know who is Nigeria's former health minister?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously, now I'll give you the definition of what we call child, because when I listened to him, he was talking about the age consent. He spoke about the parents have the authority or should decide if a girl is matured. I mean, a parent cannot ultimately decide, but they can give consent. Now, the law states, or according to the UN, a child marriage is a human rights abuse. It constitutes a grave threat to young girls' lives, health, and future prospects. Marriage for girls can lead to complications related to pregnancy and childbirth in developing countries. These are the main cause of death among 15 to 19 years old. Girls who are married are also exposed to sexual transmitted infection, including HIV. Now, if I want to make this brief, looking down here, the United Nations Convention on Consent to Marriage minimum age for marriage, and registration on marriage, November 7, 1962. That's the UNTS, Article 231. Now, forced and early marriage deprived women and young girls of the discrimination against women. Now, the CEDAW 1979, Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1976, and the Convention on the Right of the Child, CRC 1989. These treaties, as provided by Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution, are not directly applicable in Nigeria until they are domesticated by National Assembly and in some cases by the states.
Until they are domesticated.
By the states, right?
So that's the clause.
That's the clause in there.
So
now,
does that mean, if we could take it from there,
yeah,
if they are not domesticated,
yeah,
can we be held bound by it?
We can be, because we signed a treaty in fact.
Even if it's not domesticated?
Why? The question will now be, why is it not being domesticated when you've actually signed into it?
Okay, part of the other questions that will arise in this is the actions that, Nigerians are talking about, can it be deemed illegal? And illegal under which law?
You see,
especially from the perspective that he stated it.
Yeah.
Because he says, listen, if I marry under Sharia law, or if I marry under customary law, and I go with the stipulations of that customary law, the English law does not apply in my circumstance.
As a concerned citizen, I think I can actually take the National Assembly of the country to the UN based on my legal right to do so.
Why? What would you be seeking?
Because I'll be seeking that we've actually consented to this law to guide child marriage, and it's not been domesticated in the country, which is wrong.
All right, so if you go to court based on that, and maybe
to the UN,
to UN based on that, and then I say, look, I'm within my rights as well, because what I've done is not illegal, because I'm obeying the law with which I signed up to. How would that fare?
We have an option as a country either to opt out or to stay in there, and obviously be bound by the law that we've actually signed treaties to, which is under the UN. The UN is a body that actually regulates all the countries that actually been bound by the treaty that they signed to.
Okay, well, first of all, let's also say that this Section 29 that they're talking about, actually, we've heard other senators talk about it, that it does not have anything to do with marrying underage children out.
Okay.
It just has to do with your renunciation of citizenship. And then
I think before he reacts to that, it's so difficult for anyone to really pick anything from what the senator is saying, because if you look at that interview, I think that the senator actually was trying to bamboozle everyone, because when you talk about Surah Al-Ma'idah, it takes someone who understands the Quran. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 4 he just quoted, has nothing to do with that.
The same way this section
so that is why, that's it.
Nothing to do with child marriage.
So I'm hoping that the senator is watching. When we talk about Surah Al-Ma'idah, that's Quran 5:4, he quoted, has nothing to do with it. It has something entirely different, asking the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, telling him what is lawful for him, and nothing about marriage was mentioned. So it becomes so difficult. It means, it looks like, we're on an enterprise of someone taking us on a roller coaster of nowhere. So that is why we have to come back to look at what you're just talking about here. So because if we talk about specifics, he's not been able to give us that in the Quran or the Hadith. And so looking at this act now, perhaps domestication of this, will this help us if the National Assembly, which he also is a member, help us if we finally domesticate this? Would it lay to rest all of this talk about child marriage or no child marriage?
I think to some extent,